Good morning again, everyone. So as you might guess from the fact that there's no normal cross on the altar, and yes, there is one that's hidden, but that's supposed to be Wayu Picchu, which if you look on the picture on the front of is a very distinctive karst peak at Machu Picchu. And so that's what this was. But no, I wasn't covering up the cross because I was trying to be anti-Christian. But I am going to talk about a different cross today, and a crazy, full, ubiquitous spirituality that we noticed in our very short time in Peru. The Andean cultures were all influenced strongly by the Quechua, and for those of you who don't know, because I didn't know, Inca is a poor identification of a people, because the Inca was just the god king of the Quechua people. There was only one Inca at a time. They weren't a people, they were, that was it. But they led, and it was amazing. If you look through the history, which I've done since I've come back, because I really didn't know that much about it, the Quechua people, and what we refer to as the Inca, were amazing at what they accomplished and how they spread out. And I think a lot of it has to do with their sense of spirituality and how it pervades all parts of their life. And I found it when we were there, both Pepe and I commented every guide we had would spend some time talking about, and they'd pull out from their own shirt, blouse, whatever, just their version. And the more I heard them say it, the more I noticed that the Chicana is everywhere in Peru, not just in the architecture, but the people. Everybody wears one. They're not as pretty as mine, but it is a definite thing there. And I was amazed by it because the more you look at alternate theologies and religions in the world, the more you realize they all kind of have the same general premises. But I was struck with the Inca cross, the Andean cross, the Chacana, and I've got a picture of it back here so you can see it a little bit more detail, at how much they took one symbol and put all of it into that one symbol. And when I first saw it, I thought it was, and it is, more like the zodiac and the agricultural chronological symbol that many early societies did, and it does. So, the summer solstice, and remember this is in South America, so the summer solstice is actually in December, and the winter solstice and the fall and spring equinox are all there. And you'll see versions of it that have their zodiac and their 12 months around the Chicana, but it involves a trinity, which I was like, wow, there's a trinity there. Their trinity is, to my mind, much richer than ours, because their trinity pervades everything, and it's not three people that you kind of, or three spirits that you kind of, they're all one, but they're not. It's really, there are multiple aspects of life, and they focus on it. And they take that and it goes into everything that they do. So if you notice on the cross, it is a cross, but there are 3 steps on every side of the cross. And sometimes, I drew one here, and mine has a triangle trinity. Sometimes there's a triangle on that to remind you of the trinity, but it's there whether they do it or not. You've got 3 steps for every side of the cross. And I will start with, because I left it blank on here, each side represents a different part of their kind of spirituality and their 3 zones within it. So they have 3 worlds, and that's the upper right and northeast quadrant, however you want to look at it. There are all sorts of different ways that Westerners have interpreted it since then that change a lot of things. But what I'm going to share is mostly what I heard over and over again from Peruvians. And so in the upper region, you have the Trinity, which is three versions of their spirit guides, but they're not gods or aspects of God. They're animalistic representations. So there's the condor, which is the highest, because they saw that the condor was the only animal that flew up at the heights of the Andean peaks. And it had the ability to take messages from the people on the ground up to the heavens and pass them on to, and I forget what they have a word for the greater spirit. It's not so much a god, but just the spirits above. And there's the puma, which represents strength and earthliness and power, and it's the here and now. It's the here, and I was listening last night to a Peruvian talk about the cross because I wanted to make sure I wasn't remembering it on YouTube, and he said, we all kind of think of ourselves as the puma, right? We have that strength to get through things, right? And then there's the snake, which is their underworld, their connection. But I loved that gentleman's take on it. They believe very definitely in reincarnation, in a renewal of life. And so the snake loses its skin and becomes a new snake on a regular basis. And it lives in the ground, and so they look at this, and so I just like that as they have a heavens, and they have an earth, and they have an inside, an underneath it, and they don't necessarily call it it's not hell, it's the inside. It's the under, all right? And I just thought that was wonderful. And all things connect to Pachamama. Pachamama Pacha is earth, space, life. It's this kind of all-encompassing, and Mama is just what it sounds like. So, I mean, in English, we'd say Pachamama is Mother Earth, Gaia, all right? All the steps connect to Pachamama. Everything connects to Pachamama, and you go through that. And then, like I said, they take this idea of a trinity of three levels to all the other things, and they have, on the upper part, core values or strengths, and this is love in kind of the agape love, all right? Love, work, they really value doing their work, and knowledge, learning, all right? And I don't want to know which one's the condor and which one's the snake, but they all, that's how it goes. And then they have their three warnings, the three things you don't do. And so they, of course, go on the underside of the cross. All right? And I was thinking when I first heard this, I was like, oh my God, this is like the 10 Commandments all kind of put into 12 steps on the, because we don't lie, we don't cheat, we don't steal. Those are their 3 steps on that side of the Inca cross. And then the last one, and this was the one that really touched me, is they took the love step from their core values, and they said, and really that shows out in reciprocity, returning values. I've heard it several different ways, but they have 3 levels. You have a reciprocity, you have love with your family. So if relatives come and they ask you for something, of course you give it. And then you know that you can go to them afterwards. And then community. And by that they mean more like the village. And so they say, well, if there's an orphan, it's the village's job to take care of the orphan. But it gets even more than that. Everybody to their own strength and what work and learning they have. So there are people who were their soldiers. It was their job and their duty to go off and fight and do things. But that meant that they left their families unsupported during that time. And it was the community's job to step in and make sure their lands got plowed and their crops got harvested and that things were taken care of. And then there's the responsibility and the reciprocity with the world. And you always do things to make the world a better place in whatever way, and it always goes back to those core values, that idea that you love all, you work hard daily, and you learn as much as you can so that you can give back to your family, to your community, to the world. And I just, it was such a rich symbolism of a whole philosophy and spirituality all in one little symbol that I fell in love with it. And just because I kind of sort of created what I could of Machu Picchu up here, I'll share a little bit about that because there's some things. Machu Picchu was lost intentionally because when the Spaniards were coming through, the last Inca realized he was not going to beat them long term. He could win battles, but he wasn't going to win the war. And so after the last battle that he won, he disappeared and he went down the Inca trails, which are all over the Andes. And he burned bridges and hid trails until he got to this Temple Mount area, which we now know as Machu Picchu, and set a small number of people in charge of it because the Spaniards were after the city of gold because they had a lot of gold. They didn't look at it as monetary value, it was decorative. It was, and so they hid it. And so when Hiram Bingham was famously found Machu Picchu, all right, it was just because he happened to go there and asked, "Can you show me this place?" They were happy to show him the place, and it was pretty beat up if you look at old pictures of it. But there are aspects to it that are absolutely long-term spirituality, and there are two things that I want to share from Machu Picchu itself. There is, and I didn't have a picture of it to give for this, but I thought it was wonderful. There is an Andean cross in Machu Picchu that you can only see the top half because the bottom half is underground. Because the bottom half is underground. All right? So they have an Andean cross, and the part that's sticking out of the ground is about this high. And they did connections, and they found a rock. It's a big rock, but a rock that if you look at the profile of the rock, it matches the profile of the mountains and the ridgeline around Machu Picchu, and so to them it had a huge amount of spirituality. And Pepe and I can both tell you it's definitely one of those places you put your hand out. They don't let you touch it anymore, but you put your hand out towards it and you feel something. It's definitely got some imbued spirituality in that rock. It's pretty amazing. But their connection was pretty stunning to their land, to their people, to who it is. And the Quechua people still are the majority in Peru. And like I said, I don't know that they all wear this, but I saw an awful lot of these around people's necks, and I saw an awful lot of it in symbolism and architecture, frescoes. It's kind of everywhere. And they don't necessarily tell whatever it is, but everybody knows. Everybody knows. Apparently, they teach it to their kids, doop, 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 doop. And it was a wonderful thing just to do that, and totally made the stress of getting there worth it. It wasn't the easiest place to get to. Not the hardest, but not the easiest. So that's what I have. Does anybody have any questions, comments? Yes, Marilyn.
So tell me, do the colors
So on my pendant, I just chose some colors because I thought black and white was pretty boring, and and it would be more colorful if I actually hadn't taken my COVID shot on Friday. So Saturday, I was pretty out of it. I would have done more with it, but this one in the Sacred Valley, which is Ollantaytambo. I never say that right. It confuses me. Too many L's and no Y's, but you've got Y's in there. Yeah, Ollantaytambo. They developed a silversmithing technique, and I don't know what it is. They talk about it as 99.5, but there's lots of things that are 99.5% silver that tarnish. This is a silver pendant. I have not taken it off except to shower, and I sweat a lot since I got it on July 30th. Most of my stuff, if it's silver, will tarnish in like days, and they work with this particular alloy that they've developed of silver that's almost pure silver, but that doesn't tarnish, and they use gemstones to inlay and all these, and they all have their spiritual meanings in different cultures. So I forget what colors I've got. There's a black on here somewhere. I think the Gaia or the Pachamama in the middle is black. That's onyx, which is supposed to be getting rid of negative energies. There's mother of pearl in mine. All of the stones have a spiritual meaning that is connected to it, and they choose it. But I won't say that the colors on here are in any way common. I've seen so many different versions of the colors on there, so I will tell you when I did it, I picked Puma as the animal. That's why I picked red there, and the sky for the condor, and yellow because it just showed up. I didn't go beyond there. Yes.
I just have a comment, so maybe I need to come up.
Absolutely.